I was thinking, who got married? Who got married?
Scott's cousin. My mom's daughter. My niece.
That's
Okay.
Dear friends, we gather this afternoon to remember and to celebrate the life of one who filled our world with her unique personality, her strength and purpose, her soul and spirit. In humility and gratitude, we turn to the wisdom of our tradition for comfort, for guidance, and for understanding. Throughout the centuries, whenever our people felt lost, confused, adrift, they would turn to the words of Psalms, specifically Psalm 121, Esa'inai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and of earth. We are very grateful that Laura Lynn is here and appreciate her running commentary. Esa'inai el heharim me'ayin, she can stay, me'ayin yavo ezri, Esa'inai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri, ezri me'im Adonai osei shamayim v'aretz, ezri me'im Adonai osei shamayim v'aretz, Esa'inai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Adonai, what are we that you have regard for us, What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are as a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, Return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted, and behold the upright. They shall have peace. For those of you for whom the 23rd Psalm is familiar, I invite you to join with me in its recitation. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. When I die, remember me with a smile and laughter. If thoughts of me provoke no love, only sadness and tears, I ask that I be soon forgotten. Give what's left of me away to children and old ones who wait to die. And if you must cry, cry for your brother or sister who walks in grief beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. You can love me most by letting love live within the circle of your arms, embracing the frightened ones. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. My dear Daniel, Stephen, Mallory, Avita, Artie, dear family, dear friends, for 3 millennia, until the second half of the 20th century, Jewish life was overwhelmingly patriarchal. Its God was described in masculine images. Its leaders were male. Its prophets were males. Its heroes, sages, and teachers were mostly male. And yet, within this masculine universe, there has been an intriguing and continuous line of strong women. Women, in fact, whose fortitude made a difference, who were acknowledged as important, instrumental, even essential to the success of any number of enterprises or of survival itself. The biblical women who were slaves in Egypt are credited with keeping their husbands and families from despair, even in the dire conditions of Egypt. The women of Hanukkah are credited with aiding the success of the brilliant guerrilla war against the Syrians, waged by the Maccabees. The women of the shtetl are credited with keeping life and limb together in the poorest of circumstances, amidst hardship and constant dislocation. When I think of Sue Schermer, I think of that kind of strength and uncommon endurance. In the face of challenges and difficulties, in the aftermath of grievous loss and heartbreaking sorrow, she had the strength and the fortitude to persevere, to press on, and to stand firm. She was strong-willed and strong-minded, strongly opinionated, and sure of her beliefs, attitudes, ideas, and judgments. She was uniquely Susan and could be no one else. As Stephen affirmed, she was an interesting woman with a singular personality. She was tough, but loving at the same time. In a different era, she would have marched out of Egypt, rejoiced with the Maccabees, stared down the Inquisition, and defied any disruption of shtetl life. She was very clear about what she thought and what she would tolerate. She knew her own mind and did not hesitate to express herself. She was astute, smart, a good listener, and interested in what others were doing and what they were accomplishing. She loved her family and loved when they called to check in on her. She was not an easy customer, but if Daniel, Stephen, or Evita needed anything, she was there. She came through. She was formidable. She came into this world almost 93 years ago, on July 12, 1949. She rarely talked about herself, so we don't know many details of her earliest years. As the firstborn child of Alex and Sonny Sill, she was 5 years old when younger brother, Bobby, arrived. We can imagine, in the chauvinistic era of the 1930s and 40s, that it could have been disruptive and displacing to have a brother intrude on her 5-year-old world. But Sue was quite vocal about her pride in and admiration for Bob throughout her life, although it also seems that she could be pressed into service to help control him or bail him out of trouble when Bobby was growing up, always with a mischievous gleam in his eye and a prank or two in his back pocket. Sue acknowledged that her brother's antics commanded much of the household attention, which must have been somewhat confusing and disorienting to her. Sue and Bobby both went through the Shaker schools, where Sue was well-liked and enjoyed an active social life, and first became friendly with subsequently lifelong friend Ginny Klaus. Sue went on to Ohio State, where she joined the Jewish sorority, SDT, and by her own admission, pursued an MRS degree. She seems to have been in an accelerated program. She was only 19 years old when a mutual friend, who was also a patient of Dr. Marvin Schermer, fixed them up. Marv was already established in practice. He had been out of the service for 2 years. He was 27 years old, and he drove a big car. It was a whirlwind romance. After 3 weeks, Marv proposed. After 7 weeks, he decided it was time to get married, at which point Alex Sill stepped in and determined that things were moving much too quickly. They would have to wait 5 months before they could get married, which they did on November 27th, 1949. At the time of Marv's untimely passing in 1997, they had been married 48 years. They packed a lot into those years. Their marriage was atypical in many ways. They did a lot of traveling, far more than their contemporaries did at the same point in their lives. As soon as they had the means, Marv wanted to go and see, reasoning that they should travel while they could, and if they had a chance to go back later, that would be frosting on the cake. They took 2 extensive European trips, one to Israel, Turkey, Greece, and Amsterdam, the other to London, Paris, Switzerland, Rome, Venice, and Florence. They went to the Dutch West Indies and the Caribbean. Sue was something of a reluctant traveler, so when Nancy was old enough, she sometimes accompanied her father on wonderful trips that they both enjoyed. Those kinds of travels mostly ended, however, when they started going south to Florida and embraced the glories of the warm weather and of golf. Daniel, Stephen, and Evita all speak nostalgically of their grandparents' condominium on Van Aken, where, among other attractions, they loved to play grandma golf, a kind of miniature golf or putting green on the remarkable second-floor backyard terrace attached to the condominium. 2.5 years after they married, Sue and Marv welcomed Nancy into their lives, and 3.5 years later, Lori arrived to complete their family. While Marv worked long hours, Sue set about raising their daughters and creating an exceedingly well-run, organized, and beautifully appointed home. Sue loved to cook and beguiled 3 generations of her loved ones with her culinary prowess. She loved to cook family meals, and when they were growing up, Nancy and Lori could count on a warm meal on the table every night. Sue considered it her responsibility to host Seder, Hanukkah, and Thanksgiving. Sister-in-law Eileen judged the quality of her own chicken soup by the answer to the question, is it as good as Aunt Sue's? To this day, Eileen assumes that when Scott and Sherry, later joined by Michael, Brittany, and Lexi, said yes, they were humoring her. She was renowned as well for her matzo ball soup, brisket, sweet potatoes with marshmallows, homemade applesauce, and cheesecake. Avita remembers seeing her father, Jay, cooking side by side in the kitchen. Mallory has special memories of some kind of cooking with Nanny. She wrote, "When I first joined the family, we would all usually help out, but eventually she shared her recipes and cooking tips and preferred watching us cook instead. Nanny wanted to feel that she was still part of the process and would ask what we were doing every time we even moved in the kitchen. She would also check the oven temperature when we stepped away and tasted the food before anyone else. There was no better compliment than making and serving food for Nanny and having her ask who made it and could she have seconds. I think we all secretly liked having the one dish at the table she could obsess about, which brought some interesting new takes on old classics. When it comes down to it, nothing was better than sharing meals at Nanny's table." Nanny's table was part of Nanny's home, first on Marchmont, where she loved to host birthday parties for Nancy and Lori, and where she and Marv hosted their supper club friends, such as Ginny and Dick Klaus, and others whom they also met when their children were small. The club met monthly, and each couple took their turn to host. The house on Marchmont, as the condominium on Van Aken would be later, was meticulously organized, spotless, maintained, and designed. Marv loved to garden, and both homes showcased his artistic eye and his talent, and both homes back up against or overlooked the Shaker Country Club golf course. They were in the Marchmont house when Marv finally relented, and they acquired Wagator, their beagle, named in Latin-sounding syllables for what was supposed to mean rover. The girls were delighted. They were not so delighted with all of the training Sue thought was important to be refined, well-bred, and socially competent young ladies. Sue sent them to etiquette school and signed them up for ballroom dancing and lessons in deportment. Sue had high expectations and high standards, and in her straightforward, no-nonsense, assertive, and definite way, made her views clear. The girls also had the opportunity to spend summers at beloved camps, Nancy at Trudott in Maine and Lori at Pine Cliff. Although Nancy and Lori may not have become the debutante-like models Sue would have wished, they did become quite outstanding adults with prodigious talents, skills, and expertise. Unlike Sue, who left school to marry at 19, both Nancy and Lori not only finished college. Nancy earned her PhD in education at the University of Minnesota, and Lori had her master's in education and was working toward her PhD at the time of her death. We will never comprehend or fully appreciate how Sue sustained the loss of Lori, and then 10 years later, shockingly, without reason or warning, the loss of Nancy as well. Each one alone is too much to bear. After Laurie's death, Sue kept saying over and over, it goes against the natural order of things. To sustain the pain of the double loss is beyond imagining. Sue was far too well acquainted with grief. She lost Marv after a lengthy, debilitating illness during which she lavished extraordinary care and concern upon him. Sue supervised every medicine, therapy, arrangement for his care and comfort. She sustained and watched over him, tended to his every need, and responded to his every wish. She rode the emotional roller coaster of hope followed by disappointment, of constant questions and anxiety over his status and well-being. It was a long and arduous journey that she traveled again with Laurie, and then to a far lesser extent physically, but with a profound sense of love when Bob took ill, and Sue visited often as brother and sister had the opportunity to just enjoy and appreciate each other. The visits meant a lot to them both. That appreciation extended to Eileen and Sherry and the Perlmutters, but Sue seemed to have a special place for Scott. She greatly enjoyed seeing him, having dinner with him and Mickey after Marv passed away. I'm so sorry. Having dinner with him and Mickey after Marv passed away, although having dinner is a relative term, as she usually ate half of her meal and all of her dessert. Scott was always attentive to and solicitous of Sue. He would call to say goodbye before he traveled and would check in with her upon his return. She appreciated his attention and his talents that she greatly enjoyed exploring with him. She was a strong woman in all of her endeavors. Perhaps because she never finished school, she believed in higher education. She became involved in Hillel as an adult, not as a student. Specifically, she was drawn to the work of the Northeast Regional Kent Hillel and advanced to become president of the Hillel Board of Trustees. There is something quite poignant about Sue's involvement in Hillel. She was a lifelong loyal member of our congregation, but would most likely minimize her religious convictions. She could be so tough and positively unfiltered in some of the things she said to her children and grandchildren, but if there was anything a loved one needed, she was always there. As Evita described her, terrifying and loving Grandma. There were other organizations to which she belonged. Because of Bob's involvement, she was a member of ORT. She was a trustee of the Cleveland Jewish Federation, for which she chaired Super Sunday. But it was the kids, the students, who touched her heart and whom she supported through her work at Hillel. And it was the kids, her kids in the end, who supported her. Sue had some deep, meaningful relationships. She had a close group of friends with whom she played Maj and those with whom she played bridge, including some she had known since high school. She was fortunate, after Marv passed away, to find a close companion in Mickey, with whom she especially enjoyed going out to eat almost every night. It is hard to imagine how Sue would have survived the last decade of her life without Kim, who became a true member of the family, and her team of caregivers, Dee Dee, Nola, and Denise. But the people who have been with her for their entire lives, who never failed and did not falter, even when their lives were chaotic with impossible loss, the true heroes and heroines of Sue's story, and who inherited a softer version of her strength, are her extraordinary grandchildren, Daniel, Stephen, and Evita. When they were growing up, Daniel and Stephen would stay overnight at their grandparents' house, where Sue always had board games and card games. She really loved to play war and go fish. She really liked to play war and go fish with them, and treats and recorded movies from TV that she loved to watch with them, such as Mary Poppins, a perennial favorite, and the classic TV production of Peter Pan with Mary Martin. She loved the theater and took them, whether here at Playhouse Square or in New York or in Minneapolis. She loved to go to the movies and would pick up Daniel and Stephen to go with her. She flew a Vita to Cleveland to go to both openings of the Sex and the City movies, 1 and 2. Sex and the City started as a favorite TV show, as did The Beast, The Crown, Downton Abbey, and Hallmark movies. Sue loved to shop and loved to take Evita shopping. Evita would come to Cleveland with empty suitcases and would go home with them filled. Mallory also had fashion experiences with Nanny Sue. Nanny always valued my opinion and made sure I felt included in everything, even simple things like her hair color or style, nail polish color, choice of new shoes, decorations, flowers. She always said, "What do you think, Mal?" One of my favorite memories was when Nanny demanded I go with her to shop for the dress she wanted to wear to mine and Stephen's wedding, even though she had already had the dress tailored to fit her perfectly and had already paid for it. She refused to take it out of the store until I gave my seal of approval. The two of us spent the afternoon together, talking, laughing, and instilling confidence in each other. I will never forget that day. Sue kept very close tabs on all three of them. She was delighted to know of Dan's work. She was happy for Evita to have found Artie, someone to take care of her and for her to take care of. I remember how excited Sue was when Stephen met Mallory and the relationship grew and blossomed. I quote once again from Mallory's recollections. Nanny was my role model of a Jewish mother and grandmother. She gave me guidance and advice to help me with the conversion process, even teaching me Yiddish words she claimed all good Jewish people know. She showed her love through her attention to detail in the accommodations she made for us when we would visit. She always made sure that we had clean towels, sheets, the fancy placemats would be on the table. She would even have fruit in the fridge for us. Most of all, Nanny taught me lessons of love and the value of family that I will pass on to our daughter. She will be dearly missed. That daughter, Sue's great-granddaughter, is Laura Lynn, and at 20 months, eased Sue's final moments with her delicious presence. Sue absolutely adored that child. These last years of Sue's life have been particularly difficult, as she was faced with health challenges and the immobility of her leg. Even from Columbus, Stephen took primary responsibility for his grandmother's care. With a full-time job, a new baby, and certainly Daniel here on the ground, Stephen managed to supervise her medical treatment and progress. He came to Cleveland countless times, and in these last tense weeks, with Dan and Evita, watched over her, cared for her, and stayed by her side until she took her final breath. You could not have been more caring, loving, or attentive. All three of you were with her at the end. It was extraordinary to witness. Sue Schermer was a strong woman. She had to be, as she sustained enormous pain in her life. With all that she suffered, however, she wasn't ready to die. She wanted to live. She had 4 magnificent grandchildren and a beautiful great-grandchild for which to live. In the end, it was her body, never her spirit, that tough, gutsy, forceful, indomitable spirit that even now is organizing and cataloging and managing and beautifying the hereafter to her standards and specifications. Zichrona livracha. May her memory rest always as a blessing upon us. And let us say, Amen. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be. To be and oh, to lose a thing for fools, this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. O God, you give us loved ones and make them the strength of our life, the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us bereft on a lonely way. But you are the living fountain from which our healing flows. To you the stricken look for comfort and the sorrow-laden for consolation. O God, we see life as through windows that open on eternity. We see that love endures and the soul endures, as you, O God, endure forever. We see that the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers that fade. They weave a timeless pattern in a world that is the dwelling place of your love and glory. Please rise. מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה עם קדושים וטהורים כזור רקיע מזהירים את נשמת שושנה בת אברהם ושרה שהלכה לעולמה בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בשאת כנפיו לעולמים ויצרו חיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Susan M. Schermer, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated for just a moment.
I ask those who are pallbearers to step forward.
interment will be at the Mayfield Cemetery. If you are attending that service, we ask that you return directly to your cars, put on your headlights and your hazard flashes. Thank you. If you parked on this side, you may exit from the rear. If you parked on this side, you may go through the chapel. See you at the front door.
Sorry?
That's down the hall here, sir.
I'm gonna give you a plastic cup.
Tired of seeing you every day.
I know. Sound like my wife.
I was with the company for 17 years. God bless you. How are you? I'm good. How are you? Wonderful. Thank you. You too. She loves Susan. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, I did. The day I got in town, Saturday, she was my first. I dropped off my puppy. Went to South to see Susan. She was half hour asleep. I said, come on, Susan, get up. We're going shopping. She was smiling at me.
She was a lot of fun.
Yes, she was. Yes. Yeah. Well, you all be blessed.
You too.
You all.
See you.
Yes, you all too as well.